In this video, I'm going to go over how I made over $600,000 for one client last month and show you the full breakdown. If you don't already know who I am, my name is Kyle and I pretty much run a marketing agency. I've been in the whole internet marketing space for almost 3 years now, and I've generated over $1 million for a lot of my clients that I've worked with, doing well over 100 grand months for a lot of clients, all the way up to 600 grand a month. And in this video, I'm going to fully break down everything that I did, last month to go ahead and achieve these results for this specific client.
All right, I do want to make this quite clear before we jump into the video that if you do apply everything that I'm showing you in this video, you will make more money and you will see results. But I just want to be super clear that if you have a bad offer or it's just a bad opportunity, and I'll explain in another video like what all that means, you're gonna have a bad time essentially. Like, you're putting lipstick on a pig. It's not going to work. It's literally just gonna look like literally plastic surgery on a botched chick. Like, it's not gonna work really well for you. So I just want to make that clear before we jump into it. So, but as long as you have the whole offer situation figured out, the next thing honestly is just like having the right systems and traffic. Like, just to simplify it, I'm not gonna nerd you guys out on a 40-minute video or anything crazy. So as long as you have a solid offer, you have to make sure you just have a lot of traffic that's pushing to the offer and the right amount of traffic, right? Like, you just need to know what your ICP is, essentially, like who buys the most of your product and market to those guys. So what we're doing right now is we have YouTube organic and Instagram organic, and then we're pushing a lot of paid traffic too as well. Like, the organic helps, but just like looking at like trackers, and we'll go into that later, like a lot of the traffic comes from paid ads. And I know a lot of people are honestly scared of spending money on ads, but you honestly can't. Like, don't be a bitch, honestly, is all I can say. Because at the end of the day, if you put a budget towards what you're trying to do, you'll make more money from the ads. But essentially what I did was, right now what we have is pretty much organic channels pushing to one offer, and then paid traffic actually pushing to two offers. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So what we're doing with organic is we're just pushing towards the VSL call funnel. Just booking calls through there. Very simple for the closers. They all want to close warm leads anyway, so they're getting a lot of them from YouTube and Instagram. With Meta, we're pushing to the call funnel too as well, but we're also running another funnel. And what I mean by that is, for example, we're pushing and Meta to the call funnel. As you guys know, a call funnel will simply just look like this. And what we're doing there is we're just making sure, because right now we have a good amount of closers, around 8 closers at the time of making this video, that those closers need to be packed out with calendars, at least 6 to 8 calls a day each, right? So the only way we can consistently do that is with paid traffic, because with paid traffic, it's literally just math. Like, if you're spending, let's say, $70 per booked call, right, you will then just reverse engineer the math to be like, okay, how much money do I have to spend a day to get around X amount of calls, right? It's very simple stuff. So that way we do that to be able to book out calls and collect the most amount of cash possible. Through that call funnel, a lot of the best practices that we are using is, of course, like after they go ahead and book their call, we only allow 2 slots open, right? But with the 2 slots open, of course, what we then do is we hit them with a lot of content before their call. So what that'll look like is we're gonna hit them with a lot of emails, right? You gotta gauge it on how many emails you send, because there are diminishing returns. When the open rates start to decrease, that's probably when you should stop. But we're sending a lot of emails, and it's not reminder emails, it's very value based. Because a lot of people, especially other people that in the space that practice, like Jeremy and all the other guys, they practice sending a lot of value-based emails, which I've tested it and it's actually valid. You definitely want to go ahead and start pushing a lot of value-based emails to get them to open and get them to warm up more to what the offer is. And then also as well, retargeting them with valuable content. So what this content kind of looks like, after they book a call, having just like a retargeting campaign to retarget them and just show them a lot of videos that answers specific questions, so that way people aren't coming to sales calls super cold, right? You're just trying to warm them up as much as possible. And the way you can do that with the ads is it's very easy to just build like a custom audience in the ads, and then you can just like retarget them. Just like everybody that books a call, you can just retarget them in a 7-day window or a 3-day window. It just depends. You just have to have a big enough audience to do it. But as long as it's in that window, it'll start to work. So those two things allow for, the show rates to, of course, increase and get better, but also allow for, leads to be warmer when they're coming through and booking a call. Another thing that we're running, but this is strictly cold, just with ads. We're only doing this with ads, and then we're doing the call funnel with all of the organic and the ads. But we're also running a webinar. These are some stats from the last webinar: 23% sign up rate with a 30% show up rate. And I'll show you how we do this. But with the webinar, the reason why, from what I've learned and the webinars I run before, like for example, webinars that I ran last year, and I did it organically. What I realized is when you run webinars, like the same webinar to the same organic audience, bro, like it tends to become cooked. Like a lot of people will be in the webinar chat room and they'll be complaining. They'll be like, oh, like this is the same webinar as last week. You didn't change anything. And like that type of negativity in the class and in the webinar, when you're modding it, it just doesn't do well. And then also as well, it's not good for the personal brand because you just fatigue the audience. Like they get tired of seeing the same webinar. They understand that it's a pitch at the end, and you'll start to see your sign up rate and your show up rate just completely just ticking down every single time. And you start to just think to yourself like, all right, this is not worth it at all. So that's why it's better to do it towards more so cold traffic, because what happens is you're getting those new signups every time, right? And then also as well, they're actually really inquisitive. Like they're sitting in there, they're really trying to learn, they're really trying to take everything in, and that way you can be able to really capitalize on those guys. If you do it to the organic audience over and over again, they're gonna be cooked. They're gonna be bitching, they're gonna be complaining, they're gonna be hitting you with some nice try ditties. It's not gonna be ideal, especially like with a webinar, you're trying to make a good chunk of money all in one day or in a couple of days of the week. So make sure that when you do run the webinars, it's just good to have it set up like that, because that's what I'm doing, and I've just realized it's the best results. And for anyone asking questions too as well, you're probably gonna ask like, oh well, that's super confusing to run two different funnels. But I promise you, like if you're running the webinar completely to cold, like you're fine. The VSL is just going to be collecting cash on the side. It's just a way to keep your sales team busy. Because for example, if you're only running a webinar like every week or every 2 weeks, there's going to be spots where it's going to die out, obviously, and the sales team is going to be low on calls, and you're just going to have to wait, right? Because on the last offer, bro, I had to manage a sales team, and after we did a webinar every Wednesday, every Saturday and Sunday, motherfuckers wouldn't have any calls. And bro, especially on Mondays and Tuesdays, it'd be a ghost town on the calendar. And then you have closers complaining, and it's not a fun time. But to also get a lot of people to show up to the webinars and make it more efficient, of course, we're doing the same thing that I showed you guys over with the call funnel, sending a ton of emails. That's super important. Also as well, same thing, we're going to retarget everyone that registered, right, and show them that content, get them, like, make it top of mind. Because the only thing with webinar, like if you're doing it a week out, what tends to happen is like a lot of people that sign up 6 or 7 days out, or even sometimes 5 days out, they tend to forget, and it's not top of mind anymore, and then it ends up just not being specifically the most important thing for them, and then they end up not showing up. So having that, like every time they go in, because if you think about it, it's super powerful to this. Every time someone opts into your funnel or opts into whatever you're trying to get them down, or whatever method you're using, if you can get content to retarget them every single time, it's actually going to work. Because if they open up their phone and they look and they're seeing your content, that's actually what's going to work for them. Right. Another thing you want to do too as well is a lot of SMS. We send a lot of SMS. As you can see, like this is what our plan is: almost 100,000, well, pretty much 100,000 credits. And we tend to use a lot of them because we do around 4 webinars, sometimes 2 webinars a month, 2 to 4 webinars a month, and we're just blasting them. Right. It'll look like there has to be, when people are signing up in webinars, what that looks like is for the emails and the SMS we have, right, immediately when they opt in, they're getting an email immediately, and they're getting an SMS immediately as soon as they opt in. Like, hey, thanks for signing up for the webinar, thanks for signing up for the free class, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Just thanking them for their time, just telling them appreciate you, right? After that, it starts to taper up. Like we start to send 1 email a day. Like for example, let's say the webinar's on Sunday. On a Tuesday, we're gonna send like a an email and then maybe an SMS. Then the next day we're going to send an email and then, maybe not an SMS, but then the next day we send an email and an SMS. And then it starts to taper off. Like then you start to sell 2 emails and then 1 SMS. And you start to send 2 emails again and then, 2 SMS. And then the day of, that's when you're going to blast them a lot. Like there's going to be, like, for example, if the webinar is at noon, you're going to send an email and SMS at 9. You're going to send one an hour before. You're going to send one 15 minutes before. You're going to send one when it starts. Then you're going to send one when, of course, like 15 minutes after, 30 minutes after, right? To really just get them to dial in. And those ones that are 15 minutes after and the ones that are 30 minutes after, pretty much as you can see right here, they're not going to be like reminders. They're more so going to be like, hey, the room, like something that puts a lot of like urgency into it, like saying, hey, the room is filling up. Like we really, I just want to make sure you got a spot so you don't get locked out of the room because you have been waiting for this for like a week, essentially. So that way they can be like, oh shit, like I have been signing up for this. Let me go ahead and get in the room and just see what's going on. So that way it's like a good like last chance to really get people to show up. All right. And then what we're doing on the webinar, a lot last year, what used to be really popular was sending people to like a $500 upwards to like a mid-ticket, whatever the fuck, like a mid-ticket price point, like whatever the nerds want to call it nowadays. There's arguments of what's a high ticket, low ticket, whatever the fuck, make money. Sending it to like a $500 product and then later on upselling it through. But just what I realized is just like, honestly, like building those systems is just exhausting because at the end of the day, you're running the webinar to try to get high ticket. So what we're doing right now is on the webinar, just instead of selling something like upfront to as well, which is like you won't get a lot of, because bro, one thing that I realized like back then when I ran webinars was you would run and you would show them the $500 product. They'd be like, fuck you, bitch. Like they would literally just like crash the fuck out in the chat room. But when you're doing the call, they actually don't really crash out that much and they'll book the call. So what we're doing right now is we're running the webinar, getting a lot of people live, and then at the pitch, it's strict, like fill out an application and book a call. So this way you can pack out closers' calendars for the next, sometimes it's like 2 to 4 days, the calendars will fill up. Like usually we're booking about, like 50 to 70 calls from it. And that's what's allowing us to really, get a lot of cash injections into the business that way. So as you can see, like from this way, what we're doing is we literally have money flowing in from the call funnel here, and then we have money flowing in from the webinar too as well, and just having all of that set up, right? I just want to give you guys a high level overview of this so you can understand like what you guys need to do, because a lot of businesses too as well that are doing, like I've talked to a lot of people doing email a month, and that's honestly what they're doing. They're running both. So after that though, the next thing you need to have is just honestly dialed in like tracking and systems. And just to go over this, like literally I have a fucking sheet that has all of the fucking data, right? That then populates over into here for September, right? And I know sometimes this one is based off of just like closers reports, but that's why this one isn't going to be as accurate as Hyros, of course, because this is always good to look at, but this is good to check sales team data. So it's like very easy. Like I can easily see like next month we can work on the show rate a little bit and then get the AOV a little bit higher, right? So that's always good to see, because if you have like, you'll be surprised on like how many people don't have fucking sales team data set up. And it's like they're just like, oh yeah, we're making this, or this is what our close rate is, but they're fucking capping, and they're just that's the shit that they're just saying like off the top of their head. So yeah, to each his own. But also as well, if you're spending money on ads, I mean, don't cheap out. Try to get Hyros or something like that so you can see if you have a fucking ROAS, and then see just like how much you're actually profiting to as well. To just know like, okay, like we should turn these campaigns off, we should turn these campaigns on, and just go from there. And then another thing as well is just like I said with the systems, like having a CRM. What I like to do is I have a CRM that's fully automated. So for example, like this over here, for example, as I can show you, if you can see like no show taken, not closed, no show deposit collected, this, no matter like what this says actually, is going to automate over here and move all the leads to here. I don't have sales reps moving anymore. I just have the EOD that populates to this, and then it also moves them over into here. But this is pretty much just like an overview. Like I said, the full breakdown of how I made 600 grand with a client last month, but also as well, just showing you guys, like, a little bit of the sauce of how it's done. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want, my DMs are always open. You can always DM me and ask questions. If you do have a online coaching business or like an info business, consulting business, whatever you want to call it, that you want me to check out, you can DM me too as well, and I'd be open to just looking at it to see what you could do to tweak it too as well, just to give you some sauce. But other than that, hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. Peace.